I just spent hours, hours, and more hours working on my taxes,
Oh,
getting ready to send the CPA. And I don't know about you, I think taxes are a serious pain. And the prep is bad, but then you have to pay them as well. I mean, this is
hmm
kind of a double whammy.
yeah.
Um, you just did a couple of videos, and I thought they were very well timed. A couple of
hmm
videos on something that probably is critical to almost everybody that's in my audience. Some of them might want to get out of some of their Tesla shares. They might need cash. They
hmm
might want to buy some SpaceX, or they
hmm
might just want to trim as a strategy. Who knows what their needs are? But you talked about, but one of the problems you have when you do that is capital gains tax, and
Yeah.
it can be really brutal.
Yeah.
So you had some ideas, you had some thoughts, you had some suggestions or approaches. What I didn't get to watch all of both of the videos, but
Well, yeah, I think so. Where it starts is like, there's a lot of people that have a big gain in Tesla stock and effectively, have more than 50% in Tesla stock. And it's not because necessarily it started that way, but it grew to that way. And there's likely a lot of people that have a similar situation with SpaceX, at least coming up. Um, so with Tesla, if you have a bunch in a non-retirement account, like a lot of people are just frozen by it.
right.
So they just hodl the shares. They don't do any trimming, even if they think like, things feel a little rosy, a little too good to be true. And typically Tesla has these times where it ends up going down like 40 to 60% off of a high.
Right.
So like it's held up rather well, um, you know, given all the jitters with AI in the market.
Hmm.
Tesla's only down 20%, where a lot of other names are down, 40 plus percent. Um, but a lot of people just hold off on trimming because of taxes, especially if you're in California.
Oh, okay.
It'd be brutal. So like the top federal rate for income, if it's a short-term gain, is 37%, but if it's a long-term gain, it's close to 24%.
Hmm.
And then you at the higher end of the state income tax is 13.3%. Is that everything or just like the high end that pays that?
I don't know. I haven't sold any. The
There
only
you go.
yeah, it's most of our holdings are in my wife's retirement account. So
Okay, there you go.
yeah.
So it becomes a problem, and then like, as things go along, if things go well, like the gain's going to be get bigger if you do nothing.
Hmm. Hmm.
So then the potential tax bill gets uglier and uglier. So at Rebellionaire, what we do is we think about it a little differently. We think about, yeah, of your current account, how many shares you own after Uncle Sam and after cousin Callie, dip their fingers into the pot. And maybe your cousin is Tex
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
Florida man, and then you're in much better shape with the 0% state income tax. But thinking about the shares that way is like how many, if it's in a taxable or even if it's in an IRA, like you do have to pay tax on your IRA.
Yeah, yeah.
How much of that is yours after the tax man calls, and
Right.
then trying to optimize it with that in mind.
I see. So you have to think about it. It was always in this situation. Well, anytime that there was a profit, and it doesn't matter if the profit gets higher and higher,
Yeah.
go back to square one where you owned it at zero, or your basis, and
hmm
then just take away the tax money immediately. So that becomes your mindset.
Yeah, I think it's good to think about that way, especially from a planning perspective. So if you're pulling out money, eventually you need some of that money to live on. Maybe you want to give some of that money to family or whatnot. Um, to be able to live on that money, you got to pay tax.
Yeah, yeah.
And um, people can just get, very reluctant around tax, and they could let tax be the decider.
Mhm.
And I also think there's an opportunity with trimming and adding, especially if you don't live in California. Because just, California and some states like New York, I think Illinois is up there. It could be challenging, but the idea would be, if you can trim Tesla when everyone's euphoric, and it seems like it's never going to go down. It's just going to power from like 450 to 650.
Mhm.
All that sentiment. Typically, that's a good time to trim.
Mhm.
So if you can trim and then add back much lower,
Right,
you can actually add to your after-tax shares.
right. That's what Kathy Wood just did. She really did. People talk about how badly uh, her funds have done over the
Mhm.
last couple of years, but man, she sold a bunch of shares a couple of months ago when things were way up there, and then she just started buying back
Mhm.
this last few days. So she did a good job on that.
Good. Yeah.
So
So
so that
so
so that would be one
so that's the
stream.
idea with that, and I think a good thing for people to say is like, I'm going to generate taxes from my Tesla position. It's okay to pay some taxes. May not like it, but it is what it is. I used to, this may sound funny, but I used to feel better about paying taxes.
Oh,
But with, all the fraud that's come about that we found out about, just seemingly endless fraud. And essentially taxpayers are paying for that
of course they
fraud.
were. Yeah, yeah.
And so it feels a little worse. But I'd say like we know the rules of the game, and we might as well play within those rules and try to make the best of it.
Yeah, yeah. And so the real question becomes, I think, is the risk reward ratio changes is the big thing. So
Right.
if I'm sitting at 450 and I think Tesla has a high likelihood of going to 500, um, much higher likelihood of going to 500 than going to 400, and I'm looking at NVIDIA and thinking it has a chance to go from 170 to 200, and I think that chance is greater. And then I have to put the tax consequence in the middle of that and say,
Yeah.
okay, given that there's a tax consequence, is this still a good move? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and yeah, in this hypothetical, let's just kind of enter the hypothetical and realize it's a hypothetical and this is
Right.
not investment advice, but like just like being able to make 15% in Nvidia versus 10% on Tesla on a shorter term basis.
You did the math on that
Yeah.
really fast. That was good.
Yeah, that's rough. And like that would not be a reason in my mind to make a change if you're having to pay a good chunk of taxes. But if the upside was much higher and there's a much bigger difference in the risk reward, then I think it makes sense
Okay. All right. Yeah.
to
So
do
that,
some. It's not like you're suddenly it's not like we're telling people to sell all their Tesla.
yeah, right.
So, that's not it either. So, we have a sweet spot for trimming that we like where make it a meaningful trim.
Hmm, hmm.
So we don't think like 5 or 10% set meaningful, and we also don't want to like be do too big of a trim and be wrong, and have it be more existential.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so those are some of the things that go into it for us.
So on a really practical level, given that most of us own a lot of Tesla shares, what are you hearing from your people? What advice are you giving when I say not investment advice, but just life advice with regard to the SpaceX upcoming IPO, whether or not we get favored status. Are you thinking that it's a good idea to trim a little Tesla to get into some SpaceX and or obviously it might depend on what an IPO is at. And or do you think that overall it's going to have an impact on Tesla's share value?
So right now we need more information. I do think um, SpaceX has greater potential to grow, but the fundamentals of their business than Tesla does in the next like 3 years or so. But I think SpaceX is being valued for that. I think they're getting more credit based compared to where they are today.
Right, right, right.
Um, it's really exciting where they could take their telecoms business, just Starlink by itself,
Yeah, yeah.
before you give it credit for AI data centers. Right now, we need more information, and I don't know if retail investors are going to get more information before the IPO.
Well, I think they're going to get three pieces of information before the IPO. They're going to get money, AI or XAI money or X money. That's going to come out. So that's going to be a piece of information because
Yeah.
I believe that's going to change everything over at X or at least have a very big impact. And then they're going to get a Starship launched and probably successfully. This will be the version 3. So that'll have an impact, I think, on how people see the stock in a couple of months. And then there was a third thing. Oh, XA, no, something about, oh, version 5 of Grok 5 will probably come
Hmm.
out before the IPO. So I really believe that those three, they're positioning themselves to do those three between now and the IPO in order to justify the 1.75 or so, or whatever it's going to turn out to be.
It And maybe they'll release more information to the public and not just to Wall Street. There's these things when a company IPOs, called a red herring prospectus, and I don't know why herring, but it's got like this uh, red binding, red type on the front page, and then it lays out all the risks, but also lays out the financials.
Hmm.
And a lot of people haven't seen the financials of
Right,
SpaceX.
right, right. Of course. All right. And so, but in general, what is your just overall feeling? Do you think there's going to be, since many of us are in the play because of Elon Musk,
Mhm.
is it going to be, wow, I want a little piece of this other Elon Musk thing as well? Do you think it will be enough of that to reduce the liquidity of Tesla and maybe get the price of the stock might come down?
I think that could happen if a merger doesn't happen. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so my polling, which was maybe not enough to be scientific, showed that like on average, there's some people that don't want any SpaceX if there's no merger. There's some people that they want to sell more than half of their Tesla to buy SpaceX.
Okay.
And there's some people who want to do 10 or 25%. And my polling showed that it was around like 10-15% on average is, what people would sell of their Tesla to add to
Mhm.
SpaceX.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that would be a really substantial drain on the stock
Yeah, yeah. I also,
if it happens that way. So like you would need something to offset that.
yeah, and the way I kind of think about it is that this Tesla has a value, even though it might be kind of an up in the air value because it's not all on a spreadsheet. A lot of it
Right.
is in our head about what we think is going to happen. So
Hmm.
given that, it might have a bigger chance of coming down. But typically, if there's a value out there that people have kind of placed on something, in a situation like that, there is probably going to be a lot of void filling. There's going to be other folks that'll come and say, well, I'm going to buy some at that price.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, So I guess where I'd be a little reluctant is that essentially you have Tesla, like if people are selling 10% or more of their Tesla to add to SpaceX, it's going from the hands of people who are, true believers in Elon Musk
Yeah,
and Tesla, and then who buys those shares? Other Tesla nerds are probably fairly tapped out.
right.
They don't necessarily have spare cash. Um, so then maybe it's getting into the hands of people who don't understand it as much and may not be great long-term
Right.
shareholders.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, speaking of strategy and getting very, very clever with your strategies, how are you strategizing around Iran right now?
Um, I'd say the main thing I'm doing is I'm trying to, and sometimes it's too much. It's like I can't do this anymore. I'm trying to stay on top of the information
Right.
and just trying to understand it better. And I do think there's a lot of things going on that we don't know about. And there's a lot of history that, I wasn't aware of. Like there's this whole history with the United Kingdom and Iran and
Yeah.
British Petroleum. I think got a really big start because of an oil find in Iran, and then that led into the Shahs and political overthrows over time, allegedly. So there's a lot I don't know. But what I'm trying to follow it for is like, what are the implications for oil, for um, security in the world moving forward? Um, and it seemed like today the market was getting shook up. There was a couple of strikes that happened where Iran had a missile that struck a refinery. Um, Also, they had a naval drone that struck an oil tanker. And th those two combined sent the price of oil up further today, at least in the middle of the day.
I think it
And
stayed up. I'll check it while you talk.
Mhm. All right. Um, so there are concerns there, but also in the news, like the media was harping on this idea where people are saying, well, the US is running out of certain missiles. So maybe the HIMARS missiles are running low on, or the cruise missiles. And so Trump came out and said, well, we have um, guided bombs that are in near unlimited supply, and we can stay at a war as long as we want. And I feel like some of the reaction today was to that, and people thinking, oh no, we're going to get into a protracted war. And what I want to share is I see it a little differently. So, early on, Trump said, it was, maybe going to be about 4 weeks was the plan. I think maybe Israel said that, but they don't want to show all their cards to their adversaries, and the adversary isn't just Iran; it's also other large geopolitical players. I think we can guess,
Right. Right.
who some bigger ones like to the north and to the east of Iran. Um, and so Israel and the U.S. don't want to say, "Hey, we're going to be done in 4 weeks,"
Yeah.
because part of what's going on is there's a lot of pressure getting put on everybody, and it's not just the Iran regime.
Mhm.
Um, so I think there's some posturing that way where maybe that's not the true intention, but they're communicating, "Hey, we can keep at this."
Right. Right. Right.
Um, the other piece is that I think there's some misdirection potentially going on. So this story came out around yesterday that the Kurds were going to be entering the fight from the west or southwest of Iran. and the Kurds who had been pushed from Iran into Iraq. Um, and I think there's a motivation to make Iran feel threatened. And there's also, I believe, the Azerbaijanis or the Azeris. They also may be threatening for a fight. This one that might have more teeth to it. The Kurds, we don't really know. It may have been some misdirection to get Iran a little shook up, to get them to move their forces around or to shake up their leadership.
Especially since the leadership was working in the mailroom yesterday.
Yeah, yeah,
So they have to dig pretty deep to
yeah. And I'm not bragging. I want to just say this forcefully because people are saying, "Oh, well, we don't know why we're doing this." The media hammered on that like the first couple days. The motivation is to destroy Iran's military. And I think there's some stuff around oil and gas too. But like the primary motivation is to destroy Iran's ability to project power militarily in the Middle East.
Yeah,
That's that's the objective.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that President Trump has proven that he wants to be a president that's remembered for changing the entire political and economic uh, structure of the entire earth. I mean, he's been doing that since the first term.
Hmm.
He was definitely heading that way in the first term, and now he's done even more in the second term. I mean, uh, the Oslo, not the Oslo Accords, the the peace treaties that he made in the Middle East last time, Abraham
Okay.
Accords, the Abraham
Yeah.
Accords. I mean, that was breakthrough. That was crazy breakthrough. The conversations he was having with Kim Jong-il, that was, nobody else was having those conversations. His friendship with Xi Jinping. I mean, these are, and with Putin. Everybody's, oh, you can't be friends with these guys. Well,
Or you can't meet, you can't talk to him.
you can't talk to them. And somebody was saying
That was so odd. Like the left saying, about 6 years ago, you're not allowed to even talk to them.
exactly, exactly. So all of this shape-shifting was going on with regard to the world order last time. He started the
Hmm.
tariffs last time as well. So this time he's come in and he said, okay, I've got it all figured out now. Here's what we need to do. And from day one, he was working towards reducing Russia and China's ability to control anything. BRICS,
Hmm.
whatever Russia and China have been trying to do in order to turn it into a bipolar world. He was like,
Right.
no, no, we're not going to have a bipolar world. The United States, the new peace, what do they call it? The peace team or the Trump,
The Board of Peace
the Board
or
of Peace or whatever they call it. It's like
yeah.
the UN is useless. But America can come in and say, okay, we'll project power wherever we need to keep wars from happening because it's not good for the world. It's not good for the feeling of safety. So anyway, it's pretty wild what he's doing.
Yeah. He's
Um,
definitely turning over the table. Like he's flipped the tables now, maybe in 4 years somebody flips the table back, but
right, right, right.
um my sense is that he may be making this world a safer place.
Yeah, yeah,
And it feels like the globalists and the foreign policy hawks, like they were not making the world a safer place.
yeah.
And Trump has done more to um or is doing more right now to limit the power of China. Um so I think it's impressive. I know there's a lot going on politically and and all that. But so I just wanted people to, be aware, and probably were, that there's just a lot of posturing going on, and just not to take everything, um, for granted or on somebody's word or whatever.
Right, right. Not at face value. There could
Yeah.
be there could be a wink and a nod in some of those in some of those conversations. All right, switching to jobs. This has been one of the biggest stories of the last week, has been not the jobs problem today, or because right now jobs look strong. Numbers out yesterday and today, fantastic. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything any better. But no, the long-term outlook for jobs as people keep this battle going back and forth between whether AI is going to increase the number of opportunities out there and at a higher level, or whether Anthropic and Elon and others are right and we're going to wipe out half of white collar jobs in the next 3 years, and everybody will have to go on the government dole. So I know you, among all of the other co-hosts that I have, I think you probably have the most experience right now with Claude or
Yeah,
with Claude,
Claude Code. Yeah.
Claude Code as well as with OpenClaw. You've been doing it more on a practical basis in your business for longer. Uh,
Hmm.
and I'm sure you're paying a great deal of attention to it at a high level. And you participate in this book back here too. That's right. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
So
my chapter was just lighting a fire on under everyone's took us to, like, to just get in there and start playing with it, figure it out, and figure out some low-hanging fruit for your business if you're a small business owner, um, so you can implement and just get ahead of it.
yeah, yeah. And I think CERN attacked it the other way and said, hey, if you're a worker, if you're an employee, you also need to get in and start playing with it and up level your skills,
Yeah.
so that you're more valuable to the company and more likely to be training others to become good at AI as well. So what do you think? 3 years from now, will we really notice a difference?
Yeah,
Just three years.
I do think white collar work is going to change a lot. Humans are still needed, so I don't know what all, like, main categories of work will be needed, but I know there's two main ones. So, um, giving the data and the context to the AI so it can, yeah, help figure out the problems, or help figure out, what the business logic is and whatnot, or just so it can help you. Um, but you don't want to give it so much data that, like, it's overwhelmed and is too unfocused.
Right.
So there's going to be a whole art and science around that, and that's called context engineering.
Okay.
So we're going from prompt engineering to context engineering.
Okay.
And then the other piece is around verification. I think you need humans to verify that the work of the AI is correct. But it's getting better and better, and it's getting better and better with logic, especially, which is scary. Like, I can be pretty logical, but, like, I'm not like a debate champion or anything like that. I'm not a lawyer. I don't, like, know all my way around, like, all the logical theorems and things like that. But, like, it can, and ChatGPT is really good with this, and maybe Grok will be too, where it can just, you can have it, you can force it to think in a logical way,
Mm-hmm.
where the thinking it does, it'll write down, okay, well, if A is true, then that means this. And then if B is true, then that means that.
Right.
And then, how do and how do you work it all together? So it can help really well thinking through those things. Um, so I actually used it on something today we could talk about in a second. Um, yeah, I do think white collar work is going to be different, and I'm hopeful it'll be better, because AI is really good at data entry. No one likes data entry, I don't think. Maybe there's some people that like listening to music as they do it, but, like, um, it's mind-numbing work. Um, I don't, not out of greed, I don't want to pay people to do data entry because I think it's demeaning. So like maybe work gets better and just becomes easier for us.
Sure. Okay.
So I'd say I'm more of an optimist, but then we see I think today news just broke of Morgan Stanley letting go 2,500 employees in all kinds of different roles. Maybe it's just a routine pruning, but you wonder if it's around AI and
But we've seen this movie before. We've seen this movie repeatedly throughout
yeah,
the years. We saw, oh my gosh, the bank clerks, bank tellers, there's gonna be wiped out.
yeah.
And my understanding is there's almost as many bank tellers today as there was then.
Mm,
Secretaries and stenographers were gone overnight. Email eliminated anybody that had a title secretary. I was right in the middle of it.
mhm.
Secretary and stenographer, there was no reason for taking shorthand anymore or typing letters 3 times until you got it perfect. That was all gone because the boss now could send his email and receive an answer back in 3 minutes. I
Yeah,
mean, it was like a complete switcheroo. And guess what? My mom is even an example. She had the title secretary, and all of a sudden she was an executive assistant
hmm,
because the rest of her skill sets were still needed in the office.
yeah.
The boss still needed to be told what to do and when to do it because, most of us bosses are absent-minded. So anyway, that I don't see, I think we've seen this story before, time after time after time of, oh, this new automation is going to, you know, destroy all the jobs. I think there's always going to be new ones.
You make a very strong point. In the U.S., all this technological change to this point has seemed to create more jobs in the end. I
Right.
mean, it used to be allegedly like 1 in 20 people were blacksmiths or
Right.
something like something crazy like that before we had tractors and assembly lines and things like that.
Yep.
Um, they were and they were blacksmiths for wagons, essentially.
Right. Right. And before that, they were putting on they were doing horseshoes. So you said you had a specific case today that you thought would be fun to talk about.
Yeah, so I was digging into the whole whether or not we need to have a steering wheel in the Cybercab without, government ruling. There's a federal motor vehicle safety standards, just FMVSS, and that limits a manufacturer to 2,500 vehicles. So CERN Basher had a really good post on this today. I think it's like this morning or maybe late last night. And what he found was that the rule around the steering wheel got relaxed, but what I found today, and I'm still like parsing through the logic. Um, that allegedly in the legislation or whatever, it said this does not make it easier uh, to start an automated vehicle system or
I
whatever.
see. I see. I see.
And also, one thing I found with just having OpenAI look at this is um, there's nothing in there about brakes. So you still might need brakes. So we do have a really big week coming up.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so allegedly Tesla has some uh, filing that they're submitting to NHTSA around the 9th of March, which would be Monday, I think. And then there may be a meeting at the White House around autonomous or autonomy, and I believe Tesla's going to be there.
Mhm. Yeah. 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 And Nista. Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
I'm guessing Waymo will be there too.
probably.
So my sense is that I think things will go all right with the federal government. I'm curious if they get to actually pass legislation through the House and Senate.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta think like Democrats are gonna fight Elon Musk like getting any kind of win.
Except Waymo needs a win too, so
Yeah.
yeah,
And Google does give to the government,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they've given a lot to Democrats over
Right,
the years.
right. Well,
Um,
yeah,
I'd say though my sense is that like Elon's been downplaying the how quickly the ramp of the Cybercab will be.
uh-huh.
So it sounds like there's at least like some parts that might be, maybe they don't have as much on certain parts, but also like in a way, Matt Smith and I were talking about this today. In a way, the Cybercab isn't hugely relevant, because any Model Y
Right.
can do can do it.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Still extremely profitably. Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially a Model Y that comes back off a lease
yeah.
where you've already made, a huge profit on the I did an analysis on that a while back and I was like, why doesn't Tesla push leases? It's
Mhm.
such a moneymaker. It just makes so much, you make all this cash flow for 3 years and then you get it back. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a good deal. Anyway, the market we back to Iran for a minute. The markets have brushed off Iran for the most part, except for oil and treasuries. I did look it
Mhm.
up on the oil issue, and oil did come back down a little bit, and it's coming down in the pre-market as well. I didn't look at bonds because they had gone up very dramatically. Let me just for fun. Yeah, bonds backed off a little also, but not a lot. Um, so the theory on this, of course, the oil theory is easy, and the theory on bonds is that uh, if inflation is reignited by the oil problem, then you need to have your inflation piece in your bond price. Um, Bonds in the past have been a place to go as a refuge, which
Mhm.
typically you might have thought the bond yields might come down. So anyway, thoughts?
Yeah. So what you're talking about is like in times of crises, bond prices get bid up. Typically, interest rates go down.
Right.
But if inflation rears its head again, then you need to put that into the interest rate on the bonds, and then treasuries don't do as well, and that's what's going on, right?
That's what people are saying. I mean,
Yeah.
I was so shocked to see the bond prices going up. So or the bond yields going up. I started doing some research, and the only thing people could explain would be what we just talked about. And it would seem to me that while they say that if we got back to like $100 on oil, it might have a 0.7% impact on inflation. So if you believe the CPI and you think we're already at 2.8 or 2.7, then you get back to 3.4, 3.5. I kind of get it.
Hmm.
But the bond players are supposed to be the smart guys. They're supposed to be the smartest ones out there who can really look at the logic. They're the ones that did win the debate. They were in the debate club and they did become lawyers. And and by the way, I won every debate I was ever in, and I did study 3 years of law school. Anyway, so the logic here would seem to be if you're looking at any of these other methods of determining what's happening with inflation, every other method that you look at shows that these numbers are completely wrong. In particular, Trueflation is down, under 1%.
So maybe you know this. I think Trueflation was below 2% for a while, but then there was a week in the last couple of months where it just shot up. Do you know what happened with that?
Yeah, so they got some new data in. So they're always looking for new ways to add to their massive pile of data that they're getting in. And
Hmm.
they added some new data that was specifically related to housing.
Okay.
So when the new housing data came in, I think some of it had to do with hotels and motels and that kind of thing that they hadn't had before. And so that shot it up. Now it wasn't shooting up from 2%, it was shooting up from 0.7%.
Hmm.
And it went over 1% again to around 1.1, 1.2. Now it has settled down kind of in the middle of that, around zero point 0.9.
Hmm.
So, but they've got rent down. I mean, deflating at 2%. They've got cars coming back down to only inflating at 3%. They got food, groceries down, actually deflating by 1 to 2%. So those are big categories. And those are numbers that it's not that hard for other people to go out and do and find other people that are doing some stats on that, like Zillow, like Redfin,
Hmm.
the car guys, the used car guys, and the new car guys. There's all kinds of data on what's happening with car prices. So I'm not sure why the bond guys aren't seeing the same thing that Trueflation is seeing, and not just Trueflation, other people as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I'll say this. I think the Fed is aware. So like people are down on the Fed and they think the Fed's always looking at data that's old or trailing data, right? Um, and if you read the Fed minutes, they're very extensive. So they're aware of what's going on currently. They may not agree with all the trueflation stuff, but they do all kinds of polling and discussion and research around what's going on presently in the economy. I am curious to see what happens when we get a new Fed chair. Is the market optimistic about like some immediate cut?
Yeah, so that becomes part of the overall. Like right now, if I was a player, I would probably be buying some bonds and maybe shorting some oil.
Hmm.
Because if the war turns out, I think the shooting part, the missile part, is going to be over by Sunday. I've been saying that all along from day two. It was like, okay, first day they got this many, the second day they're at 50%, the third day they're at 25%,
Yeah.
fourth day they're at 15%. They're going to run out of they're not holding back.
So you're talking about missiles from Iran
Missiles from
to
Iran out
oil infrastructure.
do
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
They'll just be out. They won't have any more. They might have a few more drones left, but probably even those are pretty much depleted by Sunday. So then it's a cleanup operation for the United States, Israel, and whoever else is involved. And that, at
And
that
it
point,
essentially is now,
it
I
essentially
would
is
say.
now. Yeah, yeah,
Like I saw videos of them, just surgically bombing just individual installations on an airfield where
right.
like all the there are all these huge planes that if Iran ever put them in the sky, like they would immediately light up and they'd be able to shoot them down. So
Right,
they didn't bomb those yet.
right.
They're bombing the stuff that refuels the planes or the smaller jets. That's
Right.
what they're bombing now. They're waiting to bomb the big stuff later in a week or so.
All right, I got one last subject for us today. Elon says, by the way, this subject has been done to death by my channel, and
Okay.
Sir Basher will be on in a couple of hours, and he will also be asked the question, but I really am looking for almost everybody to get in on this.
Okay.
Elon says that Tesla will be among the first to do AGI. In the book, we said multiple times in the book that you can't get to AGI without real world data,
Hmm.
which would then say, oh, yeah, you have to have Tesla's data in order for you to actually ever reach true AGI, because the digital AI only can describe what's going on. Real world AGI can interact with what's going on as well as has a visual intake. They can a real world AGI can understand physics,
Hmm.
where digital AI can only describe physics. So, what do you think? Is this what Elon's talking about? That Tesla wins the day or is among the winners because everybody's going to have to come to them for the data?
Yeah, I think they're legitimately in the race. XAI it has a shot too. They're developing essentially like a human emulator, like on a computer enabled human emulator. So like if you if you have a robot in your business, uh, whether it's in the white collar work, like in the spreadsheets and Word documents on your Teams messages or Slack or whatever it is, email, if they're like fully immersed in the business and have all that context, um, I think there's a real good shot that they can emulate human work. But yeah, robots in the real world through Optimus and cars. Um, Even Jan LeCun, the researcher at Facebook, and he might be like one of the fathers of the transformer or whatnot. He said that real world models are where it's at. Like these large language models, they need to they need that real world data and they need to interact with it in 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 new ways. Um, so I would tend to agree that having a real world model is going to accelerate at least one form of general intelligence.
So this is just another time to mention to people that if they haven't bought the book yet, just like the Elon Musk mission was
Uh-huh.
way ahead of its time. The Elon Musk mission was the first place that you saw anybody talk about Lathrop. I actually held the book off for or I mean, sorry, moved the book up a week because I thought Lathrop was going to become part of the news, and we knew about
Well,
Lathrop, and it was in the book. Brian Wang in the Elon Musk mission was already talking about data centers, in space, and how he believed that SpaceX would be larger than Tesla someday. That was in the mission 3.5 years ago, and now in the Magic. I'm sorry, in not the Magic, in the AI Rising. I'm sorry, he didn't have the AI data in space. That was in AI Rising. So
mhm.
5 months ago, when we came out with AI Rising, Brian was talking about data in space already. And he was talking about it on Mars as opposed to on satellites, but it's the equivalent. And basically, as everybody's pointed out, 6 months ago, a month before we came out with the book, nobody was talking about data centers in space. It was not even on the table.
Mhm.
So I just hope people recognize that this was not a book put together by a bunch of your buddies. This was a book that was I mean, which we hope you think of us as buddies, but it was put together by people that each had expertise in their own special area of what's happening with this whole AI thing. And together, I still think it's the only book out there that is as comprehensive about AI. If somebody has a more comprehensive one, let me know.
Dang.
Dang!
Based.
Based is right. Well, the other thing I talked about is the book was built on the idea of a complete stack, that whoever had the full stack would win.
Mhm.
That was how the idea of the book first came to me, was nobody was talking about the importance of having the full stack. And so we broadened it to cover other things like where are the jobs going to be in the future, and like your chapter on what small business needs to do right now. I mean, all those were broadening what the original idea was, but I don't even think there's another book out there other than ours, other than AI Rising, that talks about where the full stack is for each company, and why Tesla,
Mhm.
again, especially when you combine it with SpaceX, um, the only people out there that really have the complete stack from the sand all the way to the data and the applications on top.
Yeah, I think it's clear in even with autonomy, like there's people who think that autonomy is a commodity now or will be shortly. But it's clear that Waymo has significant problems. Like with this, the event that happened in Austin, Texas, with the nightclub, and unfortunately, some people passed away and were seriously hurt by it. There was a Waymo that was blocking the street and essentially slowed down the response from the police and being able to respond to this.
Mhm.
Yeah, your autonomous vehicles need to be able to, get themselves out of a situation or get themselves out of the way.
Right, right.
Again, just like freeze and like be like, oh, we're just gonna stop in the middle of the road and cause a bunch of problems. Like, and I think that yeah, having that full stack. So Waymo does have compute, but they're not yet taking an end-to-end approach with AI.
Hmm.
Now they could decide to do that,
Right.
and maybe they have a shot, but like yeah, I think it's down to like Tesla and Waymo as far as autonomy.
Well, I think it's down to Tesla and Google, or
Yeah,
XAI and Google, as
yeah,
far as the two that have the best shot. I really, and
yeah. But
I'm
then
not
Google doesn't make their own cars, so they're
right.
paying,
Yes,
someone
yes,
else to make the cars, and they're giving up that margin.
right,
Maybe Google's gonna do the upfitting on the cars, but and keep that margin, but like Tesla doesn't need any upfitting.
right.
They
Exactly.
don't have any of that additional cost. So like that's another advantage that Tesla has.
Right, 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 right.
And I feel like while Google is moving into robots and they're very quiet about it in
Hmm.
general,
Hmm.
um, Tesla is going to go bigger into robots and they're just have a bigger scale than Google will have.
And what happens with that scale, which people kind of forget also, is it's not even about the money.
Mhm.
It's about the data.
Yeah,
Because
you get data much faster,
If
you
Tesla
lower your
has
costs faster.
if Tesla has 100,000 or a million robots out there, and Google has 1,000 or 5,000 or even 10,000, it's the data accumulation is uh, amazingly exponential when you've got exponential numbers of the product out there.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it's very clear that we are real world data is essential.
right, right.
And Google's tried to do all this stuff in simulation, and it's showed to have limits.
Hmm. Hmm. Yep, yep. All right, Bradford Ferguson, we've covered everything that I wanted you to cover today, so I'm going to let you go. But it's always great to
All
have you.
right,
You always bring a very different perspective. I always appreciate the things that you have to say. And listen,
let's get right to the numbers.
okay, let's do that. All right. So we tried it. We're working on our delivery on that, that transition there, but it's getting better and better, don't you think? Okay, let me know in the comments below. Is it getting any better or am I deluded? All right. So we got Tesla. Was down zero point 0.1 in the regular day, which is way better than the market, although the Nasdaq was only down 0.26. And then in the after hours, we've got Tesla down a little bit more, down 0.16 at 404, almost 405. Okay, so that's where we are on Tesla. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bonds next. We were talking about that a minute ago, but let's just confirm the bonds are down 1 basis point in the after hours, but still at 4,136. We have got oil down $1.42, but still sitting around $80 on Texas Intermediate. Um, uh, the split between Texas Intermediate and Brent is now down to $6. And it was, I think, as high as 8 a few days ago. So that would tend to say people are getting a little more relaxed about the Middle East with regard to oil. Maybe not, but that's what it tends to say. Natural gas still under $3, but right bumping up against it. Some articles today suggesting that natural gas could be the bigger issue. I think it would take a while. I think we're going into March. Natural gas, natural gas is important. You use natural gas for a lot of stuff, but I think March and April would probably be the lowest utilization. March, April, May, it's probably the lowest utilization all year because You're not using it for your heating at all. Okay, so we've got the dollar is continuing to be up a little bit as all of this stuff unwinds. We've got the Bitcoin down 25.39 today, down to 70,800 again, and Ethereum staying over 2. So I've got Bitcoin staying over 70 and Bitcoin staying over 2. So they're trying to make a new floor here. And the Dow for tomorrow is up, I'm sorry, down another 1.61. S&P down another 0.56 and NASDAQ down another 0.26. So again, Tesla continues to outperform significantly compared to the others. All right. I have, from time to time, talked about what I think happens next. I think that we are going to see continued volatility this week. It might be up, it might be down, and it probably will be both. I mean, seriously, up and down as different news things hit. But I don't think it's going to be down, down, down. I think there will be volatility, and I do think this whole thing will be basically over by the weekend. And next week, people will just get back to normal, and we'll be back off to the races. All right. Later on tonight, as you know, Cern Basher will be here, and it's an amazing show. I almost cut it in half, but I got lazy. So it's a long one, but man, it's really good. And then last night we had, of course, Brian Wang, and we also had Jeff Lutz, and both of them talked about this very subject that I just talked about here. I mean, there was other things too, but this whole AGI and AI thing, and how Tesla and SpaceX are different and why it matters. We talked about that, so I'm putting both cards up again. I would really recommend you go back and check those out. And then Cern and I will also be talking about it later tonight. The more you know about this part of the game, I think both from the standpoint of Tesla and SpaceX and kind of the general business climate, the more you know about it, then the more information arbitrage you're going to have. Because believe me, these institutions are not going to be as smart about this stuff as you're going to be if you listen to the co-hosts that are on my show. Just they don't have the same info. All right, so they can listen to our show, but they don't do it. Did you see that today? Where Ford never ever took apart a Model Y or a Model S or a Model 3. They didn't even watch the videos that were put out on the takedown, on the cars being taken apart in order to, they just finally took a Model, I think a Model Y or a Model 3 apart, and they were shocked to find out how much less wiring harness was being used. They were shocked to find out how much less weight the car had in it and why. They were shocked by all those things. So if that's true, then think to yourself, if I know AI backwards, forwards, and inside out, which you can get from these guests, I think there's 8 of us, and plus me, there's 9 total that are on a regular basis that each have expertise. Look at these people that are on. Look at your Jeff Lutz, who is massive experience with Motorola and other companies where he was building their entire factories and and working on supply chains and the rest of the stuff. And as a consultant today, helping people do some of the same stuff. Major companies, some of them I know about. I don't think he wants me to tell you. And then you've got Brian Wang, who Grokpedia just named as the most important resource for futuristic science news. They're number 1, right at the top. I forget how many thousands of citations already in Grokpedia from Brian Wang and his Next Big Future page. I can keep going down the list, but I think Larry Goldberg with massive, massive companies that he ran, bringing us amazing wisdom. And now he's doing venture capital. And so he's been doing that for a while, I guess, but really getting deeply into it. He's buddies, friends now with Cathie Wood. I mean, these are resources, folks. And the book is a major, 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 major resource. And still, even though things are moving fast, that book is still chock full from beginning to end with stuff that will help you to understand what's going on. All right, I'm done. I'm exhausted, actually, from pushing my book. So, so I'm going to say goodbye. Whoops, I don't know if I'm going to say goodbye or not. I've really screwed up, but I'll figure out a way to get out of this. It's been great talking to you. I think there we go. All right. I think I can figure it out here.